You may not know this, but Foley is a person who has endured a number of different injuries during his sporting career. So many, in fact, that rumour has it that the board game Operation was actually based on his life after a lucrative book deal fell through. In this episode, we talk about the different methods Foley uses to cope with injuries that take away his ability to be physically active, and how he deals with the kind of depressive feelings that can set in once one of his main passions in life gets taken away for periods of time. Don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom, just another light chat between the two of us on the topic of sports injuries. Welcome to episode 18 of the Foley and James podcast. So what exactly has been the problem?
Kind of my groin, kind of my hip, in that area, in the left upper inner thigh. I was just kicking practice for rugby, and I caught the ball a bit wrong, practicing kickoffs, and it twinged it, and I'm not 100% sure what it was, but it's just due to a lack of flexibility anyway, kind of leading on from that.
Do you stretch and everything after your workouts?
I've started to in the last the last month or so, but I really didn't in years gone by. I hate myself for it because I know all of this stuff. I know everything. Like, it's what I freaking studied. It's a bit of a passion in a sense, and I just don't do it.
It's just finding the motivation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a doctor who smokes.
No, it is. I know the feeling. Like, it just feels like a pain because you get your workout done and you're knackered or whatever, and it's just a pain to be bothered to stretch, even if you know better.
Yeah.
But particularly now, obviously, like, we're not old, but we're on the wrong side of 25, and it's when those things can go.
Yeah, completely. You see some of the kids here, and they've been doing their workouts, they don't bother stretching, and then of course, like, the next day they're absolutely fine because they're only they're freaking 10 years younger. Yeah, it's grouchy old man day complaining about stuff.
Colin, so you've got a lot more experience with injuries than I do. What have you had?
Yeah, so I've like injuries on both sides in a sense, because I help some of the kids here rehab and stuff like that. But yeah, and I've had a lot of injuries. So there's kind of three main ligaments in the ankle, and I've damaged all three of them in my right ankle, and one of them in my left ankle. These are all at varying times. I think I'm on 7 trips to the emergency room / casualty / A&E, whatever you want to call it, wherever you are in the world. But in fairness, I'm still the lowest member in my family, of the kids in our family. There's my 2 older sisters. I think Pamela's on 9, and then Ruth is well into double figures.
What the hell do you do? Like,
well, stuff, I guess. But all of mine have been sport. Absolutely all of them. So I worked my way up the body. So I chipped a bone in my toe, my big toe on my right foot. And of course, there's nothing you can do for that. Just find a comfy pair of shoes and hobble around. They won't even give you crutches.
Wow. Say how you did them all as well. Tell us how you did
that. That was in playing in goal in a Gaelic football game. I think I was in my first year or second year in school, and the senior team didn't have a goalkeeper for that game, and they called me in, which is kind of cool, like first year in school and you're called in to play for the senior team.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There was just a big kind of melee on the ground, and I don't know how it happened exactly. And then so right leg, again, as I said, I've done all 3 ligaments in my ankles. They've just been football, soccer on varying surfaces. Great fun. I also have done damage to my right Achilles, which is great. Again, football, soccer, whatever. So I know the first couple were on the same field, actually. It was just a muddy field, and I just went over badly on it, kind of thing. It was nobody's fault, really. But then there was another incident in the same ankle where it was on AstroTurf. So like 3G or 4G pitches, fields, where my foot went down, foot planted, ball hit the outside of my foot kind of above the ankle bone. And of course, my leg sprung in from the impact of it, and then sprung back out again, because that's how springs work. And but my foot didn't move from the ground; it stayed planted in the exact same spot in the turf. So it was the same action almost as rolling over the ankle, like getting a bad sprain. It was a hell of a bad sprain. I was in a big air boot for my graduation, and on crutches for my first graduation in Rochester Cathedral. It was like a huge cathedral, and of course you go in the main doors and the altar's up the other end, and I'm sitting right up by the altar in the first place. So I have to go all the way up the church in crutches and an air boot, in my full gown and everything. And then you go up onto the stage, you get your whatever, your certificate, the handshake, all of that stuff. And then I had to walk all the way around the cathedral, like literally inside it, right around the walls, all the way back to my seat. And I get back to my seat, and the usher, she's like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were on crutches. I'd have told you just to come straight back down again." I'm like, I could shove this up your arse, woman. Yeah, a couple of strains, the usual kind of strain spray and stuff like that, muscle strains, like strain my calf muscle once or twice, have a couple of dead legs. I don't really count them as injuries because they're only kind of week off injuries.
Yeah.
And then so last year, so I don't know, I can't remember if I was born with it or developed it at a very, very early age. It's a disease called Perthes. Disease makes it sound so harsh. But it's childhood disorder which affects the head of the femur when it's developing. So like going into your hip, stuff like that. So whereas normally you'd picture it and it'd just be a ball and socket, nice and simple. Your fist goes into your other hand kind of thing. But the the right femur didn't develop properly when I was young. So over time it eventually grew into its own shape, and the hip socket grew around it. But there is a couple of millimeters, probably a little bit more than a couple, of a difference though in my leg length, which I think is where these groin injuries in the last 9 months have come from.
Well, so that's probably. I mean, what side is that on?
It's my right side, but of course it'll affect everything because it's the hip, so it's going to affect.
Well,
everything.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking, what side have you had all your ankle strains where you've had your 3 ligaments damaged and stuff?
My right one.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So last summer when I came over to Canada, I started playing rugby immediately. Hadn't really done anything for maybe had 20k ran in about 3 weeks, whereas the previous 2 months I was running 25, 30k a week. So I went straight back into playing rugby, rock hard ground. You get tackled onto that, or you're tackling and you're falling onto concrete really, because it was so dry, the grass. And then I started practicing my kicking. That hurt my hip, so I played a few games at the end of last season, but had to have my hip taped, my leg, groin, hip, whatever, that area taped for all the games just to get through them. And that was fine, and that was my right one. And now I've just back from my left one, obviously. So hopefully I'm gonna keep up the strength and conditioning, for the next month, really. The specific ones given to me by the physios. And hopefully that'll be it'll never be the end of it. I know that, especially playing rugby. But go from there.
Yeah, I was going to say, why do you particularly stick with rugby? I mean, I know you love the sport and everything, but when it comes down to, you've got what is essentially a deformation of the bone, which is more than likely a major root cause of all these injuries you're having. You pick a sport where it's,
high impact.
High impact and very little protection,
Yeah.
Do you see yourself playing for...
I'll play for another 4 or 5 years, I'd say.
Are you not bothered about the long-term possible ramifications of that, or what's?
I got over that when I was quite young, because I think I was 12 years old, still in primary school, and the doctor is telling me that I'm going to need a hip replacement in the future.
Right.
You hear that at 12 years old, and you're just like, oh, what the fuck? Thanks for telling. Thanks, doc. Just do it now. Why don't you?
Did he mean that you'll have to have one younger than
He said more than likely about before I'm 60.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So me playing rugby, it might mean it's at 52, or rather than 58. But I'm enjoying myself too much right now. So.
Have you ever seen how they do a hip replacement though? It's brutal.
No.
It is brutal. I don't recommend you particularly looking at it because because you're saying you're likely to get one. Honestly, dude. I watched the knee replacement the other day, and cool. It was really cool, but it was crazy, what they do. And I was speaking to the surgeon as well, and he was telling me how they do hip replacements, and I just couldn't believe it, man. It's crazy. Really, cool. It's tough stuff, man. But
you see, the thing is, by the time I get mine done, the technology will have advanced so much that it'll be carbon fiber. I'll be a couple of kilos lighter. It'll have a USB port, Wi-Fi capabilities. I'll be able to watch sports on it. Yeah, it's fine. Either that, or they'll have invented adamantium, and I'll be like Wolverine. And then going up the way, I dislocated and fractured a knuckle in my left ring finger when I was younger, playing Olympic handball. I dislocated and then popped back in my own thumb playing a rugby game, and kept playing. I think that's it on my hands. A few like
You've not really picked, the most easygoing sports, have you? Because Olympic handball's tough as well. Do you played hurling as well?
Yeah, I played hurling up until I was about 14. A few like wrist sprains just from like constantly like getting shots taken at me and playing in goal and stuff. So I played Gaelic football till I was 18, and I was pretty much just a goalie in that. And those balls are the same size as soccer ball, but they're a little bit heavier as well. Okay. So, and then I had a hairline fracture in a rib from a rugby game. And then, of course, I couldn't do anything for 10 days. Like, I couldn't laugh. I couldn't sneeze. It's horrible. And 10 days later, I go and do a 4.5-hour adventure race.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. That's the thing, like, so I run, I do obstacle course races, and I play rugby. Three sports that are not really designed for someone like me.
No. I mean, have you ever thought of just going to a spin class or something?
Boring. I can't die doing that.
No, I remember one of the things you told me, and you won't know this because it'll have just been an off-the-cuff comment, but it stuck with me because as an analogy, it really got the point across as to the state of your ankles in particular. Is that one time you described them to me as you having chocolate ankles, and that image was just stuck with me of just this brittle thing that could just snap at the break of a just snap at the click of a finger.
And if they get too warm, they start to melt.
Yeah. Wow.
It's not as tasty as it sounds.
Did you mention it at the beginning that you said, so despite all of these horrific injuries and the fact that you're not changing your behaviours to, reduce that likelihood in the future, did you mention that you're doing rehab with children? As in leading rehab?
Yeah, so like they'll have, they'll have injuries and I'll just help them come back through that and stuff. Or even if they do have their exercises from their own physio and that kind of thing, I'll just help them do it, and we'll end up increasing the resistance, that kind of stuff.
Oh, so you're not creating programs or setting programs for them, you're just helping them implement the programs that they've been
Sometimes I am setting, like, so if it's just a minor thing and they haven't gone to a physio or something, I'd feel confident enough for most injuries, giving them a plan of some sort, like a few specific kind of like knee strengthening exercises, stuff like that. Have you had any major injuries?
No, I'm the wrong person to be doing this podcast with, to be honest. It's going back to the chocolate ankles thing. I've had a history of just rolling my ankle all the time,
There's a lot of basketball as well, isn't it?
Well, exactly, I played basketball, but even when I was a kid, when I was just playing in the street with my friends or whatever, or playing football, like I would always roll my ankles. And because I did it so much when I was really young, when I started playing basketball, every time I'd roll my ankle, it just didn't bother me. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would hurt, because it does hurt, but I feel like the ligaments are stretched out so much that when I roll my ankle, it's almost like a normal range of motion. And which isn't good. And I actually went through a phase a couple of years ago when I was playing for a team, and this is not an exaggeration. Every single training session, I would roll my ankle. Jeez. And that went on for about 4 months until I finally decided this is not normal and I've got to change something here. And I went, I was already going to the gym, but I changed up my program and put a focus on doing balance training just to really strengthen that stuff up, because there was something going on there. And I think that was a lot to do with it, because the balance training really reduced that a lot, and I think I've only rolled my ankle once since doing that, and that was over the last 3 years, Yeah,
that's good. And there you go, folks. The advantages of actually doing something about an injury.
Yeah, well, I do. Yeah. No, I mean, I've always stretched after any workout, any gym workout. I can never be bothered to after basketball, which isn't good. But in my mind, I tell myself, because I do it in the gym, then that's enough for now.
Yeah.
That won't last, There's the older I get, or the older everyone gets, you have to put more effort into looking after yourself, because your muscles naturally start to waste away as you get older, just through age and then through not using them if you're just sedentary all the time. So, you know, I'm very aware of that. You know, I'm taking steps to make sure that is reduced or minimised as much as possible, you know.
Yes.
But I have been lucky. I mean, yeah, with basketball, I've had a lot of... similar to what you said, you know, some of these things are classed as injuries because they're just part and parcel of the sport. So, like, jammed fingers, you know, from basketball where you just can't take a ball on the end of the finger and it swells up to the size of, I don't know what, like a table leg or something. But that, you know, that's all just part of the game. It doesn't really bother me.
Playing rugby now because
Do you wear a skull cap?
No.
What do you think about them? Because I know some players do and some don't.
I don't know. Personally, like, so I've never worn one. The whole point of like wearing one is to protect your head from collisions, but the skull cap is so soft that it doesn't do that. It might take,
and it just seems really thin as well.
Yeah, it might take a few percentage off it, you know, of the percent of the impact. But I think a lot of people, some people, wear them just to protect their ears in a scrum as well, because your ears can get like destroyed. Just have a look for cauliflower ear on Google, and it's pretty brutal. Yeah, no, I don't wear that. This season I'll probably actually be the first season I'll have worn a gum shield.
Jesus, you never used to wear a gum shield?
No, I just hated the way it felt in my mouth and I couldn't talk properly, and you know, but no, I probably will this year. Well, one of the reasons I wanted to like do this topic is not only because I've had so many freaking injuries. It's the other side. It's the after the immediate injury. You know, it's the following weeks after, and I don't mind saying it, but it's depressing. I know it's quite a strong word, and but it is. You know, I have a book somewhere that I write in every now and then, but there's one of them that I was reading through it, and I must have scribbled it down when I was like 18 or 17 or 18, when I got, like, I think my first injury came when I was 16, my first really bad ankle injury. And then I had another one about a year and a half afterwards. I think it was during that second one. I wrote something down. It's just running, especially. So for this injury, I couldn't run for 3 weeks. And I was getting in such a good groove. And if I'm in a shit place mentally, I go for a run. You know, that's what I do. I'll work it out. I focus. I push myself. I push myself physically, so I don't have to concentrate on the mental stuff. And then it doesn't obviously go away completely, but it might be able to work itself out in a sense. So that's what I did. And then when I'm down, feeling like shit, when I'm injured, it's some of the worst like feelings I've ever had in my life, because I can't get up and run. I can't do anything a lot of the time. And I know I'm not the only person, you know, that feels like that. I can't be.
No, I agree with that. I find it interesting that you use exercise as a way of distracting yourself from your problems, and you know, maybe they work themselves out a little bit, but as you say, not completely or whatever. Like for me, I like going for, if I have something bad going on, I like going for a long run or a long walk, just something, and I actually use it just actively. Just the movement obviously just keeps you kind of concentrated on something else, but my mind will be racing on whatever the topic is, and I'm actively working it out. I don't know.
I don't want to say distract. I think that's not quite the right word. I kind of like, I go away from whatever the issue is for a second, and then I can, when I do address it again, I'm seeing it with fresher eyes. If that makes sense. Yes, I'm not completely thinking about it. It's just, yeah. That's what it is, rather than just distracting. I'm not one of those people who will ignore my problems.
Right.
I don't see the point in that.
That's good. You know? That's what I wanted to make clear, because that's what it sounded like a little bit.
No. Yeah, no. Sorry.
Because I like to use running a lot, particularly, and I'm not a runner. You know, it's not what I do on the regular. It's what I turn to when I've got stuff to sort out. Like I said, I'll go for a long walk or I'll go for a run, and it's once you've got past that first, I don't know, say 10-15 minutes where you're thinking, oh God, this is knackering, or, you know, you're doing your running, you're sort of getting into the rhythm. Once you've got that rhythm going, whatever speed it is, and you just suddenly, your mind will start to drift off away from the actual task at hand. And like, I don't know how it is for you, but everything that's going through your mind will suddenly, you'll start to work it out, and you might have run however many miles without realizing it, because you've just got all this stuff sorted. And by the time you arrive back at your house or wherever it is, not only do you feel like you've got your thoughts sorted out, the fact that you've gone and exercised has released a load of, positive
Yeah, well, it
hormones.
releases the endorphins anyways, and I think you said it a lot better than I attempted to. That is how I'll use my runs as well. Obviously, I'll enjoy running anyways as a form of exercise. Well, that's a lie. Nobody enjoys running.
No.
But I run a lot. But that's a definitely, like, so that's kind of what I was trying to say a little bit, whereas I am focusing on something else. But for me, so I'll listen to music unless I'm going for a really long run. So when I was doing the Spartan thing, I did a 90-minute run for the first time in my life. And I think I only stopped once, maybe, for a little break.
Yeah.
So that was good. And on those ones, I'll listen to a podcast. But if I'm only doing 5, 6, 7, K, maybe 8K at a push, I'll just listen to music. And that'll be my focus initially. And then through that, like within that, whatever I am trying to deal with, as I said, I'm able to look at it in a different way, I guess. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So the fact that you've been injured then and haven't been able to, or I don't know if you've been in a bad mood the last few weeks, but let's say, think of a time where you've been injured and you've had those, stuff going on that you need to sort out. How have you gone about doing it? Has it just been one of those things where you felt lost and it's just like, really got you down, or have you found another way of getting around it?
A lot of the times I've let it get the better of me and I've just been down. Like way down, and it sucks. It really, really does suck. Every now and then, though, if I'm able to kind of climb back up, I might do a little project for myself, or I'll write something, or I'll write song lyrics, or I'll just pick up a book. Like I've halfway through a book that I've read about 500 times, and that's just from the week before I moved house. So, like as we talked about last week, I moved house.
You want to share what book that is?
Yeah, it's called Fools Die by Mario Puzo, the author of The Godfather.
And why have you read it so many times? What do you
I
get
just
from it?
love it. It's hard to describe. It's really hard to describe, but I just love it because there's a couple of different stories within it, and it's based in like the 60s, I think. Going back and forth between Vegas, LA, and New York.
Let's get back onto injuries. I wanted to say that I have thought of a sort of injury that I have as a reoccurring thing, actually. Like, I find that whenever I play any racket sports, squash, tennis, badminton, something like that, a lot of times whenever I'm doing an overhead shot, whether it's for serving or just playing a smash or something, my shoulder will subluxate. So, like, it doesn't completely dislocate, but it's that sort of, you feel it slip.
Yeah.
And then it'll go back to where it should be, but you'll feel it slip for a second, and it really hurts because it's straining all the stuff around there.
Yeah. Well, one of mine is I have no idea how. I really need to get it checked out, but because it doesn't happen all the time, I keep forgetting about it. So like, I'll sit with my knee bent, and if I put a little bit of pressure on the bottom of my kneecap and keep the pressure on and like just drag my finger up over the top of my kneecap, it occasionally hurts like hell. And I have no idea why.
I have things like that, and I can't think of any off the cuff for exactly the reason you just said. Is because when it's not there, you don't think about it. You forget about it. And I have those things all the time. It's like it'll happen, and you think, "Fuck, I need to get that sorted out."
Yeah.
But then it won't happen for ages, and you just completely forget about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those are annoying. How are your bones as far as like? Can you like click all your joints and stuff? Like
all that stuff?
Oh,
like my wrist constantly. I don't know if you can hear that over the recording, but it's constant. I can do that kind of with both. My right one is worse. My toes tend to click a bit and stuff like that. But what about yourself?
Yeah, they do a lot. But like, it's not. They're not painful or anything. Do you know what it is, right?
Probably just air or something. But go on.
That's exactly right, because people think it's you're clicking your bones, but it's not what's happening. It's just
that's
fluid.
what you're doing. Yeah, because that's what you do with your knuckles, and that's just air escaping.
Well, it's the fluid between your bones that's supposed to act as like a cushion that's got trapped somehow, and then some air bubbles have got formed in there, and all you're doing is popping those bubbles. And that's what the sound is. But I mean, so people who say that if you click your bones you get arthritis, that is false.
That is bullshit.
However, it's not completely known what the actual effects of doing that are. It's Although it doesn't give you arthritis, it doesn't mean that it's completely okay.
I remember reading about some guy who, like, he liked to crack his knuckles, but for something like 20 years, he didn't crack them himself in one hand, and he
I
did in
heard
the other
about
hand. Yeah, just to see was there any effect, and it's like, nope. Obviously, that's just the cracking of the knuckles, not the rest of the joints in your body.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I can do like my spine, and it's some weird stuff, that
Oh, I
probably
can,
really
yeah. But
shouldn't
if I'm
be.
sitting like in a position for longer than 5 minutes, I'll straighten my spine out, and oh my god, it sounds like someone playing with bubble wrap.
That's a good analogy. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about? I really don't have
No, I
anything.
just for like if anyone has an injury and if you do start feeling down about it, just like talk to someone. It's something that people say constantly to do with mental health, but it's so true. Um, I'm not the best at it. Don't get me wrong. Like no more than what I was saying earlier about me not really fixing myself, even though I know how. I'm not the best at talking to people, but you do have to really do it. It'll help you get through a lot of the depression, and not just for sports injuries. It's there's not enough people. There's enough people kind of always constantly mentioning mental health and saying the words, talk to people, talk to someone. But I think there's having one more in me just saying it there, it's not a bad thing. If one person listening to this, if you listening to this right now have any sort of issues like that, do talk to someone. Yeah, guys. So that's about it for the injuries. You can find myself and James on Facebook. We're both also on Twitter. James is at tweetbelsey, Belsey. I'm at OCR Cove, Cove. OCR Cove is me on Instagram. I'm also on Snapchat, Crazy Axel, and you can. I'm going to stop giving out our other email address because we do have a big announcement coming very soon, guys. We're going to be changing everything about the podcast.
However, that doesn't mean that hammocks have stopped being live.
Exactly, hammocks are still live. Never forget that. And again, as I said on Facebook recently, that we're on 15 subscribers right now. The 20th subscriber gets a prize. We've not decided what that prize is yet, but we'll think of something. I've actually literally just thought of something. I'm not gonna tell you guys. Gonna have to wait and find out. So spread the word, share the love, and unless James has anything else to add to that,
Can we win the prize if we subscribe?
I have not set the terms and conditions of the competition yet. Okay, we'll catch you next time, guys. Bye bye.